Good evening and welcome. Nice to see you all. Mill Valley Zen International, sometimes. Uh, Gail, it looks like your partner became invisible somehow. I don't know how that happened. And tonight, the topic is a sincere practice. And I was in Missoula last week, and when we got there, of course, my daughter and husband left town for 3 days and left me and my wife with 3-year-old Bodhi, which we were thrilled about. And I was surprised that he wanted me to put him to bed. Uh, and the routine is you kind of read. He sits in my lap and read him some stories, and then he lies down in bed and put on his covers and sing to him till he falls asleep. This is really sincere practice, I think, and I don't know why, but the song that I chose every night to sing to him was Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah, and which I only know the first verse by heart. I'm now learning the rest of it because he's now learning it all. But on the I think it was the third night, I started singing, and I said, they say there is a secret song, and he opened up one of his eyes and said, "No, chord." He corrected me, and and then he wanted. Oh, and I guess then his mother came back, and of course, he wanted his mother to put him to bed. And as she put the covers on, he said, "I want you to sing Hallelujah." And she didn't know it. She didn't know it. So she kind of made it up, but he was able to tell her what all the words were to the first verse, and then he wanted to listen to, so he listened to the K.D. Lang version and the Rufus Wainwright version and the Leonard Cohen version, and it's quite something to hear a 3-year-old singing the words to that song as it was happening then. That's one thing. And the other thing, before we get into the reading, I watched the first episode of Michael Pollan, How to Change Your Mind, is now on Netflix. So I think it's a 4-part series, and I just watched the first part last night, which was about LSD, and quite remarkable the way these things develop, and also remarkable, I think, the connection between LSD and the development of computers and the internet in Silicon Valley, and I noticed that I have some mixed feelings about I'm not sure why exactly, but I my LSD experiences when I was 20 years old, I think were a big part of getting me out of college and to the Zen Center. That the experience of that there was a lot more to my mind than I had thought. And also, I think the other thing that really struck me was the experience of timelessness, the sense of actually, and it was, you know, it was frightening at times, right? Because I thought, oh, I'm going to be in this altered state forever since time no longer existed. But there was also a kind of a quality of letting go that was amazingly freeing. And I think my hesitancy in talking about it is that Zen practice so much emphasizes changing your mind without drugs. So I'm of two minds about this. You know, I think that it's amazing, and I certainly wouldn't dissuade anyone from exploring hallucinogenics, and probably you all have. I don't. Maybe you're all high right now. I don't know. But anyhow, um, I think it's something, whether it's with or without drugs, this sense of knowing that there's so much more to our minds and world and experience than, than often what we think or experience in our day-to-day lives. And there's something about um, whether you have that experience from drugs, or have that experience from long meditation retreats, or from, it's interesting, I think that experience also comes often from um, being in love, or being in grief, or some real stretching of our usual minds. Anyway, I thought it was good, the first episode, how to change your mind. So sincere practice, I think it's one of the things I think that really attracted me also to Zen, was the emphasis, especially I think it was Shunryu Suzuki's way and Dogen's way, and the emphasis of Soto Zen is more on sincerity than it is on any sense of attainment. And I love how Shunryu Suzuki talks about the practice of sincerity in this talk, in this chapter. And he starts out by saying, when Dogen studied in China, his teacher wasn't from any particular school. His Zen was just to practice zazen, just to practice meditation, and to realize Buddha's spirit with his body and mind. And I think also, I think one of the things that attracted me to Zen practice was that not only doesn't Zen take itself too seriously, but it's outright about negating Zen, and that there is no Zen is just a placeholder as a way in to becoming more sincere, as a way to becoming more of ourselves. It's the, and of course there's much to study, and there's many stories, and it's beautiful, I think, the traditions. But again and again, it comes back, I think, to developing our own sincerity, our own sincere practice. And he says, what is sincere practice? What is sincere practice? And he says, when you're not so sincere, it's difficult to know. But when you are sincere, you cannot accept what is superficial. Only when you become very sincere will you notice what it is. It's like appreciating good art. If you want to appreciate good art, the most important thing is to see good work. If you've seen a lot of good work, then you see something that is not so, that when you see something that is not so good, you'll immediately know it is not so good. Your eyes have become sharp enough to see. So this is great, right? What is sincere practice? It's noticing. It's noticing when something is superficial, and it's training ourselves through immersing ourselves, I think, um, in good art and good writing and in good conversations and in surrounding ourselves, I think, by sincere people. Um, and and I think, how do you surround yourself by sincere people? You We all need to be completely sincere. It's contagious. I think being sincere is contagious. And and of course it means noticing uh, in ourselves when we're being superficial, noticing in others, noticing when there is a lack of sincerity, again and again. But I notice when I'm looking for what I want to read and what I want to watch and the music that I want to listen to. In a way, I'm really looking for um, something that both resonates and stretches me in terms of, oh, this is really sincere. And I have to say, there's being around 3-year-olds is really great for, I loved several times I'd be with Bodhi out at a park, and he would just go up to a stranger and say, "How are you?" And often people didn't know what to make of this little 3-year-old, and I would have to say, "Excuse me, but he's talking to you." And the person would turn and look at him, and he would say, "How are you?" And there'd be this sincere conversation that would happen. It was just it's funny that we adults don't. It's not okay somehow to go up to a stranger and just look at them in the eye and say, "How are you?" So this is why we need 3-year-olds, or maybe with dogs and cats, we can sometimes get away with it as well. Uh, so he goes on to say, um, when you see a sincere person, you will know what sincerity is. However, it's not something that I can describe. You will feel it with your intuition. That kind of intuition will be gained by seeing a good teacher, and I would add to that, or by being around, by surrounding ourselves by sincere people, sincere humans, sincere practitioners. Um, and he says, to develop your well-polished eye or clear, unbiased judgment, it's important to give up or be ready to give up everything. Because of your faulty judgment, the teaching does not make much sense. You can spoil good teaching with your own judgment. So this is that, again, it's this core sense of letting go of our own standards. And again, this sounds very paradoxical and contradictory, right? Like train yourself to see what is sincere and train yourself to see what's superficial, but give up judgment. I think what he's saying is to become familiar with the way in which our own superficial way of judging things, our own ways of not being sincere, generally, I think, by some sense of greed or fear. Noticing our tendency to keep ourselves safe and to, again and again, to let that go, and to move into a different kind of mindset of sincerity. And he says the teaching of Dogen was this great spirit, ready to give up everything. When you're trying to give up everything, you haven't given up everything yet. Right? When you become tired of foolish discussions or foolish study, a foolish mind grasping for something to rely on, then you will seek for something called truth or true teaching. Then you will be completely involved in pure practice, giving up everything. So when you try to give up everything, you haven't given up everything yet. When you become tired of foolish discussions, foolish study, and our foolish mind grasping for something to rely on, then you will seek for something called truth or true teaching. You will be completely involved in pure practice. I just think that's so beautiful, right? This, right? So of course, we all, what is there to rely on? And I think what there is to rely on is our own sincere effort to want to know the truth, to want to know who we really are, who beyond words and labels, but to this sense of finding our own deep confidence in practice, the own deep confidence in letting go. And I want to end with a short poem that I thought was a good poem about sincerity by the Persian poet Hafez, and the poem is called With That Moon Language. And he says, admit something. Everyone you see, you say to them, love me. Of course, you do not do this out loud, otherwise someone would call the police. Still, though, think about this great pull in us to connect. Why not become the one who lives with a full moon in each eye that is always saying, with that sweet moon language, what every other eye in this world is dying to hear? Admit something. Everyone you see, you say to them, love me. Of course, you do not do this out loud. Otherwise, someone would call the police. Still, though, think about this great pull in us to connect. Why not become the one who lives with a full moon in each eye that is always saying, with that sweet moon language, what every other eye in the world is dying to hear?